my gosh, he played every. That was not directed at freshmen, but everyone. It was directed at everybody. Thank you.
Oh, you protected the camera.
Spread out more, guys. It'll see more. Go! She's the dodgeball master.
The one team has just Lizzie.
Let's step. We might as well play tag. We're just gonna do this. Yeah. Not the circle. Oh yeah. I'm like. Can I guess over here? Can I guess over here? It's all good.
Someone call 911! Someone call 911! God! Oh my God! Someone call 911!
The school had just got a new camera, and I went to go test it out, so I decided to film the PE class because they were playing kickball. And I was out filming for about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes probably. And I set the camera down to take a break, and that's when the accident happened. And I didn't realize until I got back to look at the filming that I'd accidentally filmed the accident.
I heard this horrible noise. And I looked out the window, and unfortunately, I saw a car that had flipped over right in front of the middle school. I was horrified. It's so hard because when you teach these children, they're not just somebody you teach. They become like one of your own. I saw as I walked down that it was Wendy, a girl I had taught when she was in 9th grade. One of my favorites. She had been hit by the car, and there was a lot of blood.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! What do I do?
So the events of that day, I was working as my normal day, working traffic, at which time I got a call over the radio saying there had been a serious accident where a pedestrian had been struck. There had been multiple 911 calls and needed police and EMS fast.
When I arrived on scene, there was a white female that had been partially ejected from the rear window. She was responsive and was extremely upset. The vehicle at that point was still unstable. I did have her come out of the back window, and I took her to a safe position at that point.
And in these scenes, gathering evidence as technology, of course, is evolving all the time. We're fortunate enough to have what's called a GoPro camera, which is basically just a camera that we can use in these scenes to attach somewhere where we can collect evidence. And we were fortunate enough to have it on this date and use it at this scene. When we arrived and once we were able to initially make sure that there was nothing that we could render as far as first aid to the people involved, we saw the opportunity to go ahead and attach that camera, which was huge in this case, instrumental in being able to later on make determination charges against the driver. But we attached the camera to the rear view mirror and we were able to catch evidence with this camera that helped us in our investigation.
My arm! I can't move.
If there's an entrapment, there's definitely going to be cutting of the vehicle, cutting the roof off, cutting the doors off, and pull them out and put them on a backboard that way so no vehicles have to be cut. Responding to this accident is a little different because it's in the area of the school. Getting in one way, not coming in two ways is very hard. So what we wound up doing was shutting the road, coming in from the backside, and brought a unit around the backside and one from the front so that we had access on both sides. If we wouldn't have been able to do it, it'd been very hard to get all of the rescue and fire units into the area to get the victims out of the car. If we had to, we could have moved people around to get over curbs and everything like that. On that day, I was the incident commander, which means I was in charge of the scene. Getting this vehicle stabilized, getting the victims out of the car into respective ambulances, get them to proper hospitals. Getting the vehicle stabilized was a big issue with getting it safe for our members to get the victims out. Once we did that, we did clean up for the area to get the glass and everything back into the vehicle so Barry could get the car onto the rollback and out of the area for us. After the collision was determined that it was stable and first responders were taking care of the injured parties, the investigation starts as to what happened, why this collision happened. An evidence camera was placed inside the vehicle to just to capture the evidence from that point on, if anything could help us in our investigation. First responders at the scene were actually speaking with the driver and the front passenger of the vehicle, and they actually admitted that they were in the middle of using their cell phone and sending texts. The cell phone was gathered for evidence, and it was later determined that that was, in fact, they were having a conversation with their cell phone using text.
Close your guys' eyes, okay? Okay. She's just gonna go over your head. Go for it.
So in this scene during the traffic investigation, crash investigation, you'll see Officer Goodell in the video where he's marking the tires, which documents and puts permanent on the pavement the resting position of the vehicle. This is very important to us because we're going to go back and we're going to measure skid. We're going to measure the distance that the vehicle slid down the road because once the vehicle left its tires, you have the metal on the asphalt, which is going to make marks as well, or impressions, which is all important. And we got to backtrack from that point and come back and set up a laser instrument which will give us a detailed drawing. We actually come out with a laser and with a pole, and we shoot all the points, and will give us exact distances, and we can draw the scene to scale.
Sitting in the passenger seat. I don't know, I never told her to slow down. It was, I mean, no one ever really goes 12 and we were late for class. Right after the wreck happened, I was kind of in shock. I was trying to put together everything that had just happened. I mean, I woke up under the dashboard. I didn't know how I really got there. It just completely freaked me out because we were just having a good time. Then all of a sudden, I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. The windshield went under the dashboard.
Hey, what you do, Cap? Can we get something to pull your steering wheel up? Yeah. Hook up a...
If we had all been wearing seatbelts, I wouldn't have to be going to a funeral tomorrow. I don't remember it rolling. I remember looking down at my nails and picking off my pink nail polish. I remember seeing Wendy and wondering why she was standing in front of the car.
One of the passengers involved was actually thrown into the front seat of the vehicle. If she would have been fastened in properly, she would not have ended up in the position she was at in the front of the vehicle, and possibly would not have been injured at all based on what we saw from the evidence at the scene with the crush of the vehicle.
Sorry. Let's go ahead and get her right. Okay, next one boarded in the back.
This collision was also unique in that there was a student filming at the time of the collision, and he continued to film the evidence at the scene. We used his camera as well as our evidence camera placed inside the vehicle to gather statements from people at the scene and from the juveniles inside the vehicle. That evidence was extremely damning when it came in front of the court.
Were you texting by chance? You texting?
I don't know where my phone is, bro.
Huh?
I don't know where my phone is.
All right. You know what happened? Was she texting?
Yeah.
Huh? Be truthful.
Yes.
All right.
Sorry.
Because it's going to come out. If she was texting, it's going to come out.
Captain Tim Sides of the Mooresville Fire Department pulled me over to the side and had informed me that while he was rendering assistance to the driver and other occupants of the vehicle, he was able to talk to the driver, and she had admitted to texting and driving in this case, which of course is instrumental in this case, that she admitted to this and it's on video. Again, we were fortunate enough to have this equipment to install in the car. We did make the determination of who the driver was, and she was pulled out of the vehicle. Once she was taken out, she was treated by EMS. She was determined to not have any life-threatening injuries, and she was refusing transport to the hospital at that time, which cleared us to be able to take her into custody at that time and speak with her and as to what had occurred. And also, we ended up placing her under arrest for vehicular manslaughter at that time, since we did have a decedent in this case.
No, they had not told me she'd been arrested. They just told me there had been an accident. I did not find that out until I got to school. Sorry.
does anyone feel when their daughter's life has been disrupted, turned upside down, and at the same time, 2 children are gone because of my child, because of the mistakes that my child made? I can't put into words the grief, the sorrow I feel, and the sympathy I feel for those other families as well.
Someone asked me if I had my phone. I couldn't find it anymore, but it was a lot of like, are you doing okay? Watch your eyes. There was not a lot of, like, I don't really remember direct questions at me. Texting, I think, is what they told me I was arrested for. But that's not what I'm charged with, I don't think, anymore. I think it's manslaughter right now, because I hit a person and then one of my friends in the car died. So. Seeing her get placed into a body bag. I guess at the time I didn't really realize it was a body bag. There's a lot going on, there's so many people there, and I saw her get placed over somewhere, but I don't remember her specifically getting put in a body bag, but just to like know that my friends were hurt and like screaming, that was really hard on me. Like, it was just hard to hear my friends in pain because I crashed a car.
Just to talk about some of the statistics which came out in 2009, one of them was really surprised me, which was actually provided by AT&T, who make these devices and provide the service, showing people who were involved in crashes while they were texting and driving. They came out with a statistic that you're 23 times more likely to be involved in a crash while you're distracted with a cell phone. And that goes along with the statistics that came out by the Department of Transportation, which in 2009, over 5,000 people were killed because of a distracted driver. Now that number of 5,000 included people that were distracted with the radio or one of their passengers and so forth. Not all of those were cell phones. Approximately 995 fatalities were attributed to cell phone use, which is tremendous. That's pretty much a whole school could be wiped out in 1 year over cell phones. Also, they showed that 16% of drivers that are involved in fatalities were less than 20 years old. So these are our teen drivers, ones who we're the most worried about, being that they're new drivers, are inexperienced. They have to face, a lot of decisions to make when they're behind the wheel. And I remember when I was 16 and 17 years old, the last thing on my mind was actually the driving. It was more of impressing my friends or calling my girlfriend or whoever it was. And I know that that's still, the top of the priority list for teen drivers.
I was texting my boyfriend, telling him I got to school, and he told me what block it was because we were late, and I don't know, it was just like some mediocre conversation that, I don't know, I just texted him because it was easier.
self-employed, and I hadn't left the house yet, and the doorbell rang, and Officer Goodell was at the door. I saw the police car in the driveway, and he said there's been an accident.
It was something no parent should ever have to do. We arrived there, and the police officer escorted us to the hospital, Officer Goodell, and when we got there, the doctors met us there, and we had to identify and have one last look at her. It was the hardest thing ever to do.
I didn't think it would be her. Had the sheet over her head. I didn't think it'd be her. It had to be somebody else. But it was her.
Yes, I would agree 100% that something has to be done. And not just with the teen drivers, but with every driver. Because sometimes, you know, we get a little older and we think that experience and time in life, that we're more capable than the next person. But, you know, the texting and driving accidents, they're all the way across the board.
I'm sorry, which is so cliche, but that's the only thing you can say. Like, I can't say I wish I'd never done it, because I did. I can't wish away all of the pain that I've caused. I can only apologize for it, and I guess they can forgive me if they have it in their hearts, but I mean, I wouldn't.